Chapter 1. You should have killed me instead. The abandoned factory groaned under the weight of silence. Broken windows allowed moonlight to spill in fractured streams across rusted steel and worn concrete. Kale Sorrell crouched in the shadows, one knee pressed against the floor, dark hair falling over his sharp eyes as he watched the black car pull up outside. Right on time, Varelian. No guards, no second vehicle, just Darian Varelian, the untouchable king of the underworld, stepping out in a perfectly tailored suit, looking every bit the lethal god he was rumored to be. Cocky bastard, Kale thought, teeth clenched. You won't be so smug when I make you pay? Kale's plan unfurled, like a trap sprung by fate. The moment Darian stepped into the factory, smoke hissed through the vents. Within moments, the Alpha collapsed, disoriented, coughing, exactly as predicted. Chains clicked. Locks slammed. In less than 5 minutes, the feared Mafia Alpha sat bound to a steel chair, his legs shackled, arms restrained, weapons gone. Kale stood in front of him, expression blank and cold. He yanked the black hood off Darian's head. Darian blinked once, calmly assessing his situation. Then, he smirked. Bold of you, Kale, he said, voice dark and smooth like velvet soaked in blood. I didn't think you had it in you. Kale's fingers twitched. You remember my name? How touching. Too bad you didn't remember it before burning my life to ash. Darian's smirk deepened. You always had a flair for the dramatic, even back in university. The name hit like a bullet. University. Kale stiffened. A flicker of memory. Crowded lecture halls, gloved hands passing notes, stolen glances from the back row. He pushed it down. That version of me is dead, Kale replied coldly. You destroyed everything, he hissed. My home. My father. I lost everything because of you. I warned your father not to betray the syndicate. Darian's voice was calm, too calm. He made his choice. Kale slammed his hands on the arms of the chair. And what about my choice? I never meant to be part of your filthy war. Darian leaned forward slightly, the chains rattling softly. You think this is justice, Kale? Revenge? I think this is me taking control for once in my damn life. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then Darian smiled. Kale's stomach twisted seeing that. You don't even realize, do you, my darling, Darian whispered, voice honey slick and terrifying. You didn't trap me, Kale. I let this happen. Kale laughed once, bitter. You're bluffing. Darian's eyes glowed with something darker than rage. Longing. You kidnapped the wrong Alpha, sweetheart. Now you're mine. Kale froze. The words slithered down his spine like a promise. Darian leaned in, smile widening. I've known you were mine since the first time you fell asleep in the back row. I've waited. I've watched. And now, you've come to me. Finally. Kale took a step back. His blood ran cold. You think you're in control, Darian said softly. But this was always my game. The predator hadn't been caught. He had walked into the snare just to be closer to his prey. Chapter 2. Ruin Me Softly. The warehouse was thick with silence, broken only by the rattling of chains and the tense thrum of Kale's racing heart. He didn't understand how everything had shifted so fast. One moment, he was in control, fueled by rage and revenge. The next, Darian Varelian sat chained but unnervingly composed, as if this had all been a romantic arrangement rather than an abduction. And now, the Alpha was talking. I'm not here to beg for your forgiveness, Kale, Darian said, voice low and steady, eyes locked on him like Kale was the center of every war he'd ever fought. But you deserve the truth. Kale folded his arms, jaw clenched. The truth? Funny how that always shows up when it's convenient for you. Darian's smile didn't reach his eyes this time. Your father betrayed the syndicate. He was leaking weapons to rival cartels for years. When we found out, he panicked. Kale's breath hitched, but he said nothing. And then, Darian continued, he offered you, his only Omega son, as collateral to the very wolves he'd betrayed. That's a lie, Kale snapped, though something in his voice cracked. I was there, Kale, Darian said softly. I saw the documents. Heard him say it himself. Do you know what he called you? He paused, gaze sharpening. A rare-blooded, high-value omega with a pretty face and no political ties. Perfect for a mating auction. Kale's knees nearly buckled, but his pride held. You're a monster, he hissed, tears burning behind his eyes. You ruined my family. I saved you, Darian growled. I wiped your father's debt clean. I let him vanish. I made the syndicate forget you existed. You're lying. I marked your name off a death list with my own blood, Kale. Darian's voice was steel now. Because I knew, even then, that you were my mate, and I couldn't let anyone else touch you. Kale's heart thundered. Why didn't you tell me? Why let me suffer thinking? Because you hated me, Darian whispered, the agony flickering in his eyes too raw to fake. And maybe I deserved it. But you only ever knew half the truth, and I couldn't risk you learning the other half, not until you came to me. Kale turned his back to him, gripping the table for support. His head pounded, his body felt wrong. Too hot, too sensitive. Not now, not this. He cursed under his breath, trying to suppress the heat crawling up his spine. His scent glands were beginning to overproduce, flooding the room with the sharp sweetness of a rising heat. Kale, Darian said softly, breathing in the air. His chains rattled again. Kale whirled around, furious and flushed. Don't you dare! But Darian's expression shifted, pained, reverent. I wasn't going to, not unless you asked, but your body's already begging for me. Kale staggered back. Stay there. Darian tilted his head. Then, like silk slipping from shoulders, the chains slid off him, effortlessly. Kale's eyes widened. What? I let you tie me up, Kale. Darian took a step forward, slow, patient. But I'll never let you suffer alone. Kale backed away. This wasn't supposed to happen. If the world were kinder, Darian murmured, I would have courted you like a normal alpha. Brought you flowers, took you on dates, waited until you let me kiss your pretty little mouth. Kale trembled. But you kidnapped me, he continued, cornering Kale gently. And now your heat is breaking you apart. His lips brushed Kale's temple. So I'll bond with you first, he whispered, then court you forever. Kale opened his mouth to protest, but then Darian kissed him. It wasn't violent, it wasn't forceful. It was devotional. He kissed Kale like he was fragile glass he'd spent years searching for. His touch burned but cradled. Each movement asked, not demanded. And Kale, despite his fury, his confusion, his pain, responded. The bond clicked into place with a searing spark, burying itself deep beneath Kale's skin, into his soul. It was too much, too intense, too everything. His legs gave out. Darian caught him. Their foreheads touched as Darian held him like a treasure finally returned home. I'll ruin you with love, Kale, he breathed against his cheek. I'll make you forget what pain feels like. You'll never cry again unless it's from happiness. Kale's heart couldn't take it. So he ran. Chapter 3. Hunted by Roses. Kale hadn't slept. The tiny apartment he called his safe house was barely furnished. Just a mattress on the floor, canned food, and an old heater that clicked in protest. The night air hung thick with the aftermath of his heat, even as suppressants dulled the worst of it. His body ached, and his heart was splintering. He bonded with Darian Verelian. Not just any alpha, but the one he swore to destroy. He hadn't stopped trembling since fleeing the warehouse. Kale clutched his knees to his chest, staring blankly out the window as the soft patter of rain coated the city's skyline. He hadn't opened his phone, didn't dare check the news, didn't want to think about the way Darian's scent still lingered on his skin, faint, addictive, possessive. But that didn't stop the first gift from arriving. It wasn't loud, no knocking, just the sharp rustle of something sliding under the apartment door. Kale crawled toward it and paused when he saw it. A single white rose, delicately pressed in black velvet wrapping, tied with a gold ribbon. A note was attached. First date flowers late but never forgotten. Durain. He crumpled the note and tossed the rose into the bin. But the next day, a box of luxury clothes arrived, his size, his favorite colors. Then a silver watch with his initials engraved. designer perfumes, scent-blocking balm, and another letter. You ran from me, darling, but I will always follow. Because where else would I go if not to you? Durain. Kale cursed and smashed the watch against the wall. The next delivery was darker. A sealed black envelope containing a photo of the bounty hunter Kale had once hired for protection. Dead. His face beaten beyond recognition. The syndicate's crest carved into his wrist. A final line was scrawled on the bottom. No one touches what's mine. Durain. Kale felt sick. His knees gave out. He clutched the sink, bile burning up his throat. This was obsession. Suffocating, violent, beautiful in the most terrifying way. And then, one night, as he locked the door and checked the windows for the 100th time, he turned around and found Darian already inside. He stood at the foot of the bed, drenched from the rain, black coat clinging to his broad frame. His eyes glowed like dying embers in the dark. Kale froze. How did you—" Darian simply raised a brow. Sweetheart, you really thought a few rusted locks could stop me? Kale reached for a knife from the drawer, but Darian moved faster. He pinned Kale to the wall, the blade flying from his hand. But his touch was careful, like always. You're scaring me, Kale whispered, voice cracking. No, love, Darian murmured, pressing his forehead to Kale's. I'm scaring everyone else so they can't touch you. Kale pushed at his chest weakly. Let me go. I will, Darian promised. Right after you hear the truth you've been running from. He reached into his coat and pulled out a sealed brown envelope. It bore the syndicate seal. Kale blinked. Darian handed it to him with steady hands. This is everything. Your father's betrayal. The meeting logs, the sale contract with your name on it, his signature. Kale didn't want to look, but he did. And as his eyes scanned the documents, his entire world collapsed. The man who raised him, the man he swore vengeance for, had sold him like currency. His chest heaved. His knees buckled. But Darian caught him before he fell. Kale didn't fight this time. He just cried. Softly, silently. He let Darian wrap his arms around him, hold him, carry him gently toward the couch like he was something delicate and sacred. Darian didn't speak at first. He just scented him, slow and soothing, brushing his nose along Kale's nape, purring softly. His warmth enveloped him. I built this empire for you, Darian whispered against his ear, so I could protect you. So I'd never be too weak to keep you safe. I don't care about power or revenge. I only care about you. Kale trembled in his arms. You were. You are. And you'll always be mine, my darling, Darian said, gently stroking Kale's hair. And I'll never let you be hurt again. Not by anyone. Not even yourself. Kale closed his eyes. He didn't answer, but he let Darian hold him. Chapter 4. Beloved like no other. The mansion was too big. Kale had once thought so during his first few days living there. Every corridor echoing, the walls silent but watching. It smelled like sandalwood, old money, and Darian's comforting dominant scent. Back then, it had suffocated him. Now, it smelled like home. Kale padded barefoot down the hallway in one of Darian's oversized shirts. His hair was damp from a late shower, cheeks flushed. He paused outside the grand dining hall when he heard the soft clink of plates, classical music playing low. Darian was waiting for him. As always, seated at the end of a candlelit dinner table with roses, red and white, lining the center. The chandelier sparkled overhead, catching the diamond cufflinks on Darian's sleeves. Kale raised an eyebrow. Again? Darian rose and pulled out a chair. Of course. Courting doesn't stop just because I already have you. Kale snorted but sat. You bonded with me during a heat cycle, chained to a warehouse wall in the middle of a fight. Darian smirked. And yet, here we are. Dinner for two, wine, and dessert. I'm improving. They both laughed, but there was softness beneath it. A history. A future. Darian had changed, or maybe he'd always been this way, just hidden. Every morning started with Kale waking to a handwritten note on his pillow. I love you. I'd burn the world again if it meant you'd smile. Durain. Breakfast in bed, home-cooked, gifts in his favorite colors, little things that weren't expensive, just thoughtful. A glass pendant shaped like a moonflower. A worn copy of Kale's favorite university poetry book. A playlist Darian made called For My Mate When He's Moody. He never forced Kale to sleep in the same room. Never pressed for affection. But every time Kale chose to curl beside him at night, Darian would hold him like he was made of starlight and silk. It didn't happen in a day, or a week. But it did happen. Kale began noticing the way Darian's eyes softened every time Kale entered the room. How he never got angry, even when Kale lashed out from confusion, hurt, and guilt. How Darian never pushed for forgiveness, but earned it, piece by piece, through actions that spoke louder than any apology. Kale started noticing the warmth. And then, the ache. He started looking forward to Darian's voice, his scent, the quiet conversations over midnight tea, the way Darian always reached for his hand under the table, but never held it too long, letting Kale decide. One morning, while watching Darian fuss over burnt toast like it was a national tragedy, Kale laughed and realized with a strange jolt that it was the first time he'd meant it in years. That was when it began. Love didn't crash like a wave, it bloomed like a slow dawn. A week later, Kale finally whispered, "I'm sorry." Darian looked up from the documents on his desk, stunned. Kale walked in, eyes damp, voice thick. "For blaming you, for doubting you, for not seeing what you did for me. I thought I hated you, Darian, but the truth is, I hated myself more." Darian stood slowly, like approaching something fragile. "Kale, I was hurt, angry. I wanted to believe you were the villain because then it would hurt less." Kale wiped his eyes. "But you weren't. You protected me, even when I didn't know it. You loved me when I didn't deserve it." Darian crossed the room and pulled him into a tight embrace. "You've always deserved it. You were never unworthy of love, especially mine." Kale melted into the hug, finally accepting it. I love you too." Darian froze. Kale whispered again, "I love you, Darian." And Darian kissed him like he'd waited 1,000 years. The proposal. Every day afterward felt lighter. When Darian knelt in their garden one quiet evening, under the cherry blossom trees, Kale didn't hesitate. He cried, laughed, and kissed Darian like his life depended on it. "Yes, yes, you idiot. Of course I will." Their wedding was the event of the year. Held in a private island cathedral owned by the Varelian Empire, guarded by syndicate elites. The guest list was elite, the ceremony draped in white roses and black velvet. Kale wore an ivory suit with a silver sash that shimmered in the light. Darian wore a fitted black tuxedo that looked like it was stitched from shadows and silk. But for them, the world faded. Only the bond mattered. Only the vows, whispered at the altar. "From the moment I saw you, you were already mine. I will spend this life and the next, proving that I'm yours too." That night in their honeymoon suite, Kale stepped out of the bathroom with a racing heart. Darian was already waiting, seated on the bed, his shirt unbuttoned, eyes molten gold. The room was filled with petals and low candlelight. "You look breathtaking," Darian said, voice hoarse with emotion. "I don't deserve you." Kale crossed the room and climbed into his lap. "Maybe not, but I love you anyway." Their lips met, slow at first, then deep, desperate, worshipful. Darian kissed every scar, every inch of Kale's skin like he was memorizing poetry. His hands trembled as he undressed his mate like touching glass, like prayer. "I'll never hurt you again," he whispered against Kale's collarbone. "You didn't," Kale murmured, wrapping his arms around him. "Not really, I didn't know. I thought you were the villain." Darian smiled, eyes misty. "And now?" Kale kissed his jaw, then his mouth. "Now I know the villain was the only one who ever loved me." Their bond flared with heat and harmony, and that night, they didn't just make love, they claimed each other fully. Without pain, without fear, only love. And for the first time in years, Kale fell asleep without nightmares. because Darian was holding him. And this time, he wasn't afraid of being ruined. He wanted it. Chapter 5. Twins. Tantrums. Too much love. It had been 3 months since their marriage and everything was calmer, settled, and quieter until it wasn't. It started with pickles at midnight. Cale had never liked pickles. In fact, he once gagged at the smell. But now, he was sitting in bed at 2 a.m., furiously dipping pickles in strawberry jam while glaring at Darian for breathing too loudly. "You're chewing like a horse," Cale snapped. Darian froze mid-bite, holding a tiny spoon of vanilla yogurt. "I wasn't even eating." Cale narrowed his eyes. "Well, stop it anyway." Darian blinked, then did what he had been doing for the past 3 days. He panicked. "Do you need water? A massage? Are your feet swollen? Is the air too dry? Should I call the doctor? Or burn the house down?" Cale groaned and shoved a pickle in his mouth. "I think I'm pregnant." Silence. Then Darian slid off the bed so fast he hit the marble floor with a thud. "You think? You think? Why didn't you tell me earlier?" "I just did." Darian scrambled to his feet like he was in a military emergency drill. "We need a test. No, 20 tests. And a medical team. And a hospital. No, a private island hospital. And a bomb shelter. And—" "Darian." Cale rolled his eyes. "Please, sit down before your brain short-circuits." But it was too late. Darian had already burst into tears. The test came back positive. Cale was pregnant. With twins. And that was the beginning of Darian's most dramatic alpha arc trademark. Month 1. 2. Darian, the cling monster. He refused to let Cale lift anything heavier than a spoon. He carried Cale from room to room like a sacred artifact. "Baby, I can walk." "Absolutely not. The floor is evil. Gravity is evil." He followed Cale into the bathroom. Twice. Cale had to threaten bodily harm with a shoe. Month 3. 4. Overprotective alpha mode. Activated. Darian fired 2 chefs because they tried to serve Cale spicy food. He installed a biometric scanner on their bedroom door that only unlocked with Cale's scent and heartbeat. "Cale, I wanted a glass of water, not a NASA-level lockdown." Darian, "You could have tripped, or been kidnapped, or stubbed your toe." Cale, "You need therapy." Month 5, 7, nesting hell. Darian converted an entire wing of their mansion into a baby-safe zone. 2 nurseries, 6 different crib models, 30 stuffed toys, blackout curtains with enchanted lullaby music, and a platinum-plated diaper changing station. He read every parenting book on Earth, and some written by ancient alphas from long-extinct clans. He even practiced swaddling on a watermelon. Cale just watched with a slow blink and said, "I married a lunatic." But secretly, he adored it. Month 8. 9. Cale, the walking balloon. Darian, the human blanket. Cale waddled now. He hated it. Darian still called him beautiful every hour. He could barely sleep. Darian stayed up with him, massaging his back, humming, reading poetry, or letting Cale rant about how his feet felt like watermelons. Sometimes Cale would cry without reason. And Darian would hold him like glass, whispering, "Let it out, my love. I've got you, always." The birth. It happened on a Tuesday. Cale was watching a drama when his water broke. Darian screamed louder than Cale. "Oh my God, this is it. Code red. Cale's giving birth. Everyone move." He ran into the hallway and screamed at the guards, the chefs, the birds, and possibly the sky itself. They arrived at the private hospital in 10 minutes. Cale delivered twins. A feisty little alpha girl with dark curls and Cale's sharp eyes. A gentle omega boy with Darian's dimple and Cale's pouty lips. Cale passed out after the delivery. When he woke up, Darian was holding both babies like holy relics, singing a lullaby with tears in his eyes. "You did it," he whispered, pressing a kiss to Cale's forehead. "You brought our universe into this world." Cale was too tired to speak, but he smiled, overwhelmed by the warmth in his chest. Epilogue. Chaos, crumbs. Cuddles. Their daughter Lyra was a wild alpha child. She bit Darian once when he tried to take her favorite plushie. Their son, Orion, was a soft-spoken Omega who clung to Kale like a shadow and sniffled when he didn't get his post-nap kisses. Darian became the most extra, affectionate, clingy father the world had ever seen. Kale became the calm one, until Lyra stuck chewing gum in his hair. Their mansion turned into a circus. Toys in the hallways, lullabies at odd hours, food fights, tantrums, but also laughter, kisses, family dinners, midnight cuddles with all four of them in one giant bed. Sometimes Kale looked out the window, babies asleep in his arms, Darian nuzzling into his neck, and thought, "This is the life I never knew I wanted. And now, I'd destroy the world to protect it." And as Darian whispered, "Mine," into Kale's hair, one night, Kale smiled and whispered back, "Yours, always."